Tell you about a very sick, disgusting old man. His name was Matthew Klein. Brother Klein was an elder at the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses, and he was a sick, nasty old pervert. He had a big thing for women and young girls. And the younger the better. He was always grabbing somebody's shoulders, brushing up against somebody. You probably know the type. Well, anyways, this caused some tension at the Kingdom Hall, as you can imagine, among one family in particular, the Kingmans. Married couple with 4 kids. Brother Klein had taken an interest in their 12-year-old daughter who was approaching puberty and was giving her a lot of attention. As you can imagine, this caused a great deal of concern for Brother Kingman, and it eventually turned into consternation between him and his wife. You see, she was a very loyal JW woman who interpreted things completely differently, and it actually turned into a division in the family, with Sister Kingman having a real problem with the whole thing. It was announced at the hall that the Kingmans would be moving to a new congregation. And they even had a little get-together for the family that was moving. Nobody knew why, but the strange thing at the get-together was Brother Kingman didn't show up. He wasn't there. And Sister Kingman announced that her and the kids would be staying in the congregation while Brother Kingman went to another hall 30 miles down the road. And thanks a lot, Brother Klein. A year earlier, there was a little dust-up that occurred at a Thursday night meeting involving a young married couple. The young woman was sitting in the audience, and she took her jacket off during the program. And apparently, she was wearing a white blouse that, under the fluorescent light, how do I say this, friends? You could apparently almost see the outline of her breasts. And this did not escape Brother Klein's attention. And in fact, he kept looking over again and again. And the young woman's husband became very aware of this, and he was gritting his teeth, and eventually he stormed out of the Kingdom Hall, and over the next couple of weeks told everyone about his Brother Klein eyeballing his young woman. These occurrences were all just blips on the radar compared to what was coming next. It involved a young woman named Rhonda. Rhonda was studying with Jehovah's Witnesses, and she began coming to the Kingdom Hall. Rhonda was a big, heavy-set woman, and she had a slew of children. I mean, she had 7 or 8 kids. Every time you turned around, there was another one. Rhonda was bringing all of her kids to the Kingdom Hall, and in fact, she was studying twice a week, making great progress. Before long, she was even giving talks at the Kingdom Hall, and she began reporting time. She was an unbaptized publisher, and even her kids. Some of her kids became publishers, and they were very active in the Kingdom Hall. And it continued this way for several months until all of a sudden Rhonda went cold. She just went cold on the Jehovah's Witnesses. She canceled her studies, wouldn't return phone calls, and indicated that she did not want to continue. And of course, the Jehovah's Witnesses did not take this laying down. lying down. As you can imagine, the Jehovah's Witnesses sent a contingent of women to figure out what the problem was and iron it out. And a bunch of witness women kept going again and again to visit Rhonda. Here's what was going on, friends. Apparently, Rhonda came to believe that Brother Klein had an unnatural interest in two of her daughters, ages 11 and 12. And Rhonda was not okay with this. And she said she was not going back to the hall and she was not going to do it anymore. Well, the Jehovah's Witness women, they visited her again. They sat with her on the couch and assured her it was not the case and she had completely misread the situation. And eventually they got through to Rhonda. She agreed to... They said that Sister Klein wasn't going to study with her anymore. They'd hand it over to somewhere else. Brother Klein wasn't going to come over to her house. And it got smoothed out. Rhonda began coming to the Kingdom Hall again and resumed progressing in the truth. And she even got baptized at a district convention. And it was... things were progressing quite well. Sometime later, however, tragedy occurred. Something terrible happened at a get-together of Jehovah's Witnesses, ironically taking place at a community building called the Friendship Center. It involved Rhonda, one of Rhonda's children, a curly-haired little boy named Javon. Javon was 4 years old, and he was a very playful little boy, very energetic, and he was always at the Kingdom Hall having a fun time. During a get-together of Jehovah's Witnesses, apparently at some point, Javon went out one of the doors and was playing outside. Outside the Friendship Center is a large concrete planter. And it's buttressed by a staircase descending about 15 feet to a parking area below. Apparently, Javon had climbed over the railing and was playing on the lisp of this giant concrete planter, and he apparently fell. I guess. No one was there, so we don't really know what happened, but after the get-together, Javon's little body was found on the pavement below. Javon's funeral, there was hundreds of people in attendance. And it was an interesting mixture of... on one side you had the Jehovah's Witnesses with all their rituals, and on the other side you had Javon's worldly family members, and they, of course, had rituals of their own. The most notable being Javon's open casket, and they had a procession of the worldly relatives who all placed little toys inside Javon's open coffin. They put a little football in there, a little comic book they tucked under his arm. Well, I guess the JWs didn't want to be outdone because some JW went up there and put a knowledge book up in the coffin right next to Javon's little arm, which typically JWs just don't do that sort of thing. But I guess they felt that, you know, the Jehovah Witness aspect of it all was being overlooked, and they didn't want to allow that to happen, so they saw fit to, I don't know. But, yeah. Anyway, as you can imagine, the little boy's death just shook everyone to the core, and it was just a terrible time. But eventually life went on. People moved on. Life went on for Rhonda, too. It actually took a turn for the worst. Shortly after that, Rhonda lost custody of her kids. I guess someone from the government came to her apartment, and it was just a filthy living condition. And her kids were sent to live with a worldly family member. Rhonda lost her welfare status and was no longer eligible to live in the government housing. She had to move out. She had to get a job. And she got a full-time job at a hardware store. And she began missing meetings. And then pretty soon, she just didn't go to meetings at all. Rhonda had moved in with a woman from work, and they became friends. In fact, in time, it came out that they were a little more than friends, if you know what I mean. It was, several months passed, and there was some suspicious behavior, but I guess the elders became aware that Rhonda was not just roommates with this woman, but apparently they were having an illicit relationship, if you follow me. And it dragged out for months of Rhonda avoiding the brothers, but eventually the elders took care of business, and Rhonda was finally disfellowshipped once and for all. And there you have it, folks. The story of Rhonda. The rise and fall of just another one of the millions of people who associated with Jehovah's people for some period of time until the tide and time of Satan's world eventually came along and swept them back out into the sea of humanity. Tell you about a very sick, disgusting old man. His name was Matthew Klein. Brother Klein was an elder at the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses, and he was a sick, nasty old pervert. He had a big thing for women and young girls. And the younger the better. He was always grabbing somebody's shoulders, brushing up against somebody. You probably know the type. Well, anyways, this caused some tension at the Kingdom Hall, as you can imagine, among one family in particular, the Kingmans. Married couple with 4 kids. Brother Klein